Good evening once again, and welcome to another Doctor on Call. It's a pleasure as always, and of course, Dr. Nixon is with me. And tonight we'll be discussing some very important issues as it relates to our wellness. Of course, as we all know, we're approaching the Easter weekend, and as we say, it's a long weekend because after Thursday, of course, Good Friday, Saturday, Easter Sunday, Monday, and then back on the job Tuesday. So quite a long rest period, so to speak, for some. But nevertheless, we're going to make the best of it. But of course, sometimes when we do get these periods, more than usual, many of us tend to overindulge a bit, and sometimes that can create little issues if we are not mindful of our actions. So it's always important to remind ourselves about what we do, how we do it, where we do it, who we do it with, all right? And of course, it's also very important, whatever we do, it must make sense. There must be good reasoning behind it and not just act because we feel to or because our friends or our peers are doing it, we have to. No, there's no rule, there's no law that says so. In fact, I do believe, for me, I always like to be aware, very much aware of my surroundings, where I am. I like to know I'm on top of things. I'm in control of my surroundings and my actions. So tonight we'll share quite a bit of information with you, and we hope that at least there is something that you can take away. Good evening, Doc. It is a pleasure as always. How have you been?
Hot.
Hot?
It's hot. Very hot.
Yeah. Well,
the weather is very warm. Look at me sweating.
Yes, today it was.
Even though it's raining in my community, it's hot. It's humid.
Well, I'll tell you, tonight it should be pretty cool because following the forecast for tonight, tonight's temperature actually is forecasted to be the minimum 23.5 degrees Celsius. And we can get the winds easterly to east-southeasterly between 10 to 20 miles per hour. So tonight...
Yeah, but it's cool, but it's still humid, which is the challenge. The amount of water in the atmosphere is still very high, so it makes it quite uncomfortable.
I think as the evening progresses, that is going to change. It's going to be a good night. I believe we'd have to pull the covers and, dream a few dreams tonight. Yeah, I think I'm going to dream tonight, Doc. What do you think? It's a good night to dream.
Wholesome dreams, okay?
Oh, yes, it did. I'm sure you realize the voice is not 100%, but, we do what we have to do. And so, Doc, we're approaching the Easter weekend. There's going to be a lot of activities. Of course, there are going to be some fetting. And of course, there are those of us who would sort of stick with the tradition of, flying a kite and, doing wonderful things. But inside all of that, it is still very important to pay attention to what we do, how we do it, and of course, the environment in which we do it. And there's a lot to be concerned and a lot to pay attention to, Doc. Would you agree?
I do. It's sometimes when we have a holiday. First of all, let me say good evening to everyone. Godfrey make me have bad manners, okay? It's. I'm happy that I'm here this week because there's a lot we'd like to share. Because although Easter is kind of a soft holiday, there are people who don't take it in the same spirit. Easter is a very Christian-oriented time when we reflect on Jesus's crucifixion, death, and resurrection. But that's not necessarily how it goes for everybody. People take it as a time. 4 days of holidays are a long time to parties and a lot of time to do a lot of things, a lot of recreation. But it's also a long time to sit and reflect and make changes and spend time with your family. Now our kids are on vacation after splendid intercall and all the inter-school athletic season, which was really, really very, very good. We already have runners off to pen relays from GBSS. They're going to the pen relays in Pennsylvania, and Carifta Games come up when
this weekend as well.
this weekend as well, right? So there is a lot going on, and we need to pray for our young people out there and hope that they keep on the straight and narrow and just do their best. That's enough for us. But Easter is generally for most people a soft, but we just have this is just a different time. People are still looking for places to go and party. I remember as a young person, not very, very long ago too, even though I'm not that young, but when Good Friday, nothing happened. No shops were open, no music played. You might hear after 6 o'clock in the evening somebody playing some nice soft music, easy music. But now, we want to blare and some of the music are really not wholesome, even for the listeners to participate. The lyrics are very stimulating negatively, if I should say. A lot of stepping out of what our normal cultural mode is, the profanities, the sexually deviant behaviors, and all the rest of it. So I really wish we could spend a little more time just being a little spiritual, not telling anybody to be Catholic, Anglican, Baptist, or anything. I'm just saying it's a good time to reflect on ourselves and what the religion, what the spiritual messages are this week. But like you say, we have a lot of things that we'd like to discuss.
Yes, indeed. And of course, I want us to start, Doc, because we mentioned, we tend to socialize a lot, so to speak, around this time. And with that comes the little excesses, and this is where it can get a little dangerous. Probably immediately we don't realize it, but a couple days after, you realize, but no, all is not well. I don't feel the way I felt before the holidays. And so we have to start thinking, should I visit the doctor? Should I, all of that. And so it's a time, as I said earlier, to pay very close attention to what we do, how we do it, where we do it, and who we do it with.
Why?
Yes. And that being said, I think it was sometime last week, just around the intercall period, in the news there was talks about the a little increase in sexually transmitted diseases, and so we need to pay attention to that, because that is an issue. Although we don't hear much about it, but AIDS is still around. Not so, Doc?
Oh, yes, it is. Very much so. And I think, you remember me talking about going to church and they read the same Bible every Sunday or Saturday, whenever you go to church? Mm-hmm. The bottom line, we have to keep emphasizing the message. Okay, we can't stop giving the message. These days, HIV and AIDS, HIV being the disease, AIDS being the advanced disease, consider something that you can live with, that there's medications to take care of. Yeah, you have to change your lifestyle and stuff, but there is a way for us to not die. If you lived in 1986, when AIDS became a phenomenon, and we couldn't figure out where it started, how it started, who make it, who don't make it. Kind of like how we had COVID the other day, and everybody trying to figure out who made COVID, and there's still a lot of theories as to where the COVID virus came from. The bottom line is that so we can guide people as to how to navigate through a disease or to prevent it, right, or to attenuate it. But I remember being a medical student in 1985, and I remember the first case of HIV in the country, known, diagnosed, was on my ward.
Wow.
And we had just started to hear little information about HIV and about HIV, about AIDS, because that's how a lot of it, that's how it was manifested by people who were sick. And I remember that first guy came on a ward and ended up on our ward by chance because his cousin was one of the senior residents, okay, on the ward. And it became a reality for us. And then we started to see other patients who may have had it. And then all you could promise people is death.
Yes, 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 yes.
Or the only thing that you were sure would come out of this was that people were going to die. But I remember then working in another hospital in another country, and I remember the guy who drank bleach and died because we still were ignorant as to how we can control this disease. And everybody's afraid to talk, and you can't stay in the house with them because they don't know how this is going to spread, blah, blah, blah. I remember the very unhappy stories like those. But then I remember the other stories over the last 3 decades of how medication started to appear. And yeah, and you used to have to take 16 and 20 tablets a day in the beginning. Now you can take 1 tablet or 2 per day and survive. And maybe if you had HIV, you'd know and you'll tell your partner and you guys will get tested and it's private and it's confidential and there's no epidemic, but it's there. Avoid it happening, we need to be aware that here's what it is, and it will endanger me, and maybe endanger my baby if I am or get pregnant, right? But the bottom line is that I can prevent this. HIV/AIDS is a preventable disease. What is HIV? HIV is to be infected by a human immunocompromised virus, right? HIV. And immunosuppressive virus. Okay. Or brain infection, or oral infection with thing. Whatever infection your body can succumb to, because it's especially the diseases that are can't get my word. The diseases that wait for it to be compromised, that they opportunistic. They wait for easy time and they step in, right? And diseases that you don't normally have, like we don't really get not viruses. We don't hardly get viral pneumonias. We don't really get pneumonias caused by fungi, funguses, and mold. It's not something that easy, but we see that a lot in people who are HIV positive and people who have AIDS. HIV is just having an infection. AIDS is when you have the disease complex developing. You have all these infections, right? Can you go back? Yes, you can, because the medications can actually suppress the virus and cause you to just have HIV, but not currently having AIDS, okay? I think we cannot drop the ball, because people are not as cautious. One, because we haven't created the awareness. And because people have HIV, you don't know, they're in the office working with you. They drive your bus. You understand? They fix your car. I'm sorry. They live normal lives because the medications are so effective,
right,
that you can. We also know that because of women who have HIV, may or may not know, right? When they get pregnant, everybody's tested for HIV, I think twice in pregnancy. Once you miss a period, you really should go and check your doctor, because those are the things you want to determine whether or not they exist, okay? So go check your doctor early. If you're HIV positive, you can actually get those medications and your baby does not end up getting the thing. Plus, it's important that we know, because babies who develop within a mother, in the uterus of a mother who's HIV positive, even if the virus is suppressed, those babies are often developed by delivered, sorry. What's wrong with my vocab tonight? Those babies are often delivered by C-section. A planned C-section, they have a minimal exchange of blood or passage of blood from the mother to the child, right? and that is trying to suppress what we call mother-to-child transmission,
Yeah.
right? And it has to come with the mother knowing. So, some of us turn up in a hospital because the law says you really should have your baby in a certified delivery center, usually the hospital. We are a small country, right? And people turn up when the baby is ready to pop out. They're in labor. It is very important for that reason and for other reasons that women who are pregnant, have at least 12 visits to the doctor during those 10 months, okay? So we want to make sure that you don't pass on the virus to the child. You want to make sure you don't have the virus to start with. And that is going to come with responsible behavior, responsible sexual behavior. We still have other things like passing on simple thing as HPV, human papillomavirus. That is a precursor that puts you at risk for developing cancer of the cervix, but also in the case of men, cancer of the penis or cancer of the throat for people who participate in oral sex, rectal cancer for people who have rectal sex, whatever it is. All of those cancer of the vulva, cancer of the vaginal wall, all of those mucosal that have the lining like your mouth, right? Are the kind of cancers that are occasioned by having HPV. Right? And HPV is a sexually transmitted disease. As a matter of fact, HPV is the most common sexually transmitted disease. And until we found that there was a direct correlation between HIV and between human papillomavirus and cervical cancer, we had not been focusing a lot on it, but now it's necessary that we do so, right? And so people need to take the precautions. What are the precautions? How do we stop how do we prevent getting a sexually transmitted? Well, the first place is not to have sex. So abstinence is an option. Okay? It's probably the best option. But we are a living population that wants to, and where partners want to enjoy each other, blah, blah, blah. Sex is also a normal part of human social interaction. But you can't just go around willy-nilly having sex with everybody because they have some place where to put your penis. Themselves. In the same way, female partners must be responsible to themselves. So if you're not going to abstain or stay away from having sex, you're going to have to take precautions. And what are the precautions? One, testing and making sure that you're negative or positive, knowing your status. It's free. You can go to the clinic. GrenChap creates facilities for HIV testing if you think you're at risk. There are populations that are at greater risk, like men who have sex with men. We know that, right? We know also that we've seen that an older population has been showing up having more HIV. So women whose men go there and have sex with with younger partners or just with multiple partners. So you might have unsuspecting women, mature women who are monogamous. They have know that he's infected. Okay? You would want to think, well, I'm not going anywhere. Why should I wear a barrier method? Which is specifically wearing a condom, whether it's a female or male condom. But I don't want to do that if I'm in a union just with my partner. Then it means that your partner has a responsibility that if he's going to go there, he's going to have to engage a barrier method. He's going to have to figure out what his other partner's status is. And they ask for people to voluntarily come and see whether or not you have HIV. Okay? Come get yourself checked. There's nothing wrong with that. It's very private, it's confidential, and really we should make an effort to have ourselves checked, right, for HIV, so that we can protect not just our own children that we may have in the future, but we can protect whichever partner, and of course we can know our status and be treated and prolong our lives for a very, very, very long time. Right? I had a patient when I lived in another jurisdiction, and that was probably early 90s. Yeah. Early 90s, he was diagnosed. Luckily, his family had a lot of money. Plus, some of his social partners had access to HIV drugs. And he's alive today, right? His partner died, right? But he's alive today. right? And alive and quite well, because he's been able to get his drugs, to stay on the drugs. Yeah, do they have? So, but it's not just HIV. HIV is probably the worst we can talk about when it comes to sexually transmitted disease. HPV is also kind of hanging in that category, although you need to have, in our population, well, in the world population, there are some HPV varieties that are a little more, cancer forming than others. Okay, 15 and 18, I think, or 16 and 18 out of the 100 or so types, right? But we also see that in Grenada and in the Caribbean, there are other numbers, other varieties of HPV, okay, that also cause cancer. All right. So whereas the big global thing says, okay, 16 and 18, we have seen some others in our population. Right? And as research goes on, we'll get to know that. The important thing is really just taking precautions. The important thing is really getting tested. And the important thing is making sure that in times like Easter weekend, when you want to party, I see their boat trip and all the rest. Yeah, go have fun. But guess what? Have fun responsibly. Okay? Don't get too drunk so you don't even know who you are or which bus stop you have to get off at. Don't get too drunk so you end up sleeping with whoever, or being abused by people who probably know their status, right, as far as HPV or HIV goes, or gonorrhea, which has come back with a vengeance because we've been so willy-nilly about our sexual health, right? Make sure that you're in control of your mind. You're always aware. And not just the girls, the young men too, because young women do approach and seduce men, right? And if you're not prepared, you will fall into this seductive place and put yourself at risk. So, I'm not saying don't have a drink or two. Don't try to empty the vat. You can't do that. Trust me. I say that all the time. You can't empty the vat in no place that make alcohol because they always have more water and whatever it takes to make the alcohol. So have a drink or two. We also spoke the other day about consuming alcohol and the potential for consuming the challenges related to alcohol consumption is increased risk for having all forms of cancer. Remember that conversation we had the other day?
Yes, we did.
Right?
We did. Mm-hmm.
And it's having just one drink. If you have one drink every day, you're at risk. All right? Yeah. If you have one drink daily, your risk is increased. So if you don't drink, then you eliminate a lot of potential to develop diseases like cancer.
Significant
and of course,
risk, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And of course, the other things. We've seen gonorrhea. Gonorrhea probably was the worst thing we used to have because gonorrhea has very unpleasant experiences for the male of the species. Most women will not know that they have gonorrhea. They might have a little discharge, but men certainly will have a lot of discomfort. Right. What is your responsibility if you've been infected with gonorrhea? One, you need to seek medical help. Don't buy 2 tablets off the street off nobody. Trust me, that does not work anymore because you need very specific medication. There are very few medications that actually treat gonorrhea completely. Very few. When I say very few, I mean very, very, very few. In the past, we used to go and buy red and black capsule and take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4, and they're good. That don't work anymore because we have so abused those antibiotics that now the gonorrhea bacteria, right, has become totally resistant because we've abused the use of antibiotics, right? And it may not clear it up completely, but by the time the bacteria right, quite resistant to that antibiotic that you had taken. So if you have a day or two after you've had intercourse, you have difficulty passing urine in the male, it burns, it really burns, it burns. It's very uncomfortable, right? And then you see this copious, like having snot almost out of the urethra, out of the penis, right? You're gone not to be treated for other things. You need to be examined for other things. For some reason, those STDs like to hang out. They're like gangsters, right? They form their group and they hang with themselves. Okay, so you may have not just HIV. You may also have chlamydia and gonorrhea and trichomona and all other things that are infections. Okay, so if you see one turn up, go to the clinic, right? And syphilis was something that happened long before that was very difficult to manage before we had penicillin. Right? Why are we having syphilis now? Like I tell you, can take up your phone and talk to somebody in Siberia in real time and see how much snowflakes falling per second. Do you understand? Why are we having that kind of archaic behavior when we have so much scientific knowledge available to us? All right? So that's it. You have fun for the weekend, yes, but please make sure that you're mentally intact. Make sure that you know what's going on in your life, and make sure that while you're mentally intact, that you're psychologically intact, that you can make decisions, make choices, okay? Because that's what's going to be the strength that you have, that you make appropriate choices related to your sexual behavior. Because the STDs are out there, walking around like a gang of bad boy, and they will attack you if you lay yourself loose. No pun intended here. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is for both male and females. Condom use is very important, right? People are going to have intercourse, but at the same time, there's no need for you to have intercourse with somebody you don't know. And if you know them, you kind of need to protect yourself. It must always be me first.
Right?
How am I going to protect myself? I need to protect me. Some of us are young people with young children. What happens when you get something like HIV? What happens to your kids? All right? What happens if you develop cervical cancer early in life? What happens to your children? All right, young men. What happens to your capacity to in your testicle, and that's going to decrease your sperm count. So and women will have decreased possibility for reproducing as well, because the tubes will get infected and locked down, and you can't have children. So let's do it healthy. Easter or not, have fun.
Right.
Good, clean fun. So one of the things I wanted us to talk about.
Yeah.
I wanted us to talk about cultural practices, because there are things that we do apart from the partying, right? Things that we eat. So I want to ask you, what happens in your house, in your household where you're brought up? What did you guys eat? Good Friday, for example.
Well, what I could tell you, I know there is a culture for the mackerel, but what you hear nowadays, the salted mackerel has become so expensive, so people can't afford to buy that anymore. Things like mackerel used to be so for example, put it in layman terms, what poor people used to eat. You buy your quarter pound, half pound mackerel, you cook with some provision and whatever, and you eat that. Then as time progressed, it became very expensive, and it became, well, of course, part of the Easter culture. But now, when you look at the salted mackerel and chop, we're talking all $14-15 for a little scrawny piece of mackerel. Yeah.
Yeah, but what are the challenges we have with mackerel consumption? It's salty.
It's very salty, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we love salt.
But not only that, but in addition to that, Doc, it's salty, and the usual thing is we're going to use it with oil and all of that. So with salt and oil, that's double jeopardy.
Double jeopardy and triple jeopardy, because we're going to eat it, even if we eat it with dasheen and fig and yam and carrot and all the vegetables and stuff, we eat a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still among us those of us who have hypertension and diabetes, right, and high cholesterol. I'm not an advocate. I'm very averse to the use of the cheaper oils that we have in a supermarket, because those artificial oils still put us at risk for high cholesterol. A lot of them are stuff that are dumped into our country because they can't sell them elsewhere, so they send them to us and sell them cheap, but they're not good for us as far as our health is concerned. So again, you have to watch your volume, your what you consume and how much of it you consume.
Quantities, yes.
Okay, because we eat a lot. So I lived in Jamaica, and the Jamaicans have bun and cheese. Like a bun, we make a bun.
Doc, I have to confess that that's one of my favorite. And let me tell you, I first experienced this many years ago. In 1982, I represented Grenada at the Carifta Games in Jamaica, and there was this lady in the stadium, coming around buns and cheese, and I bought this.
Cheese, one bun.
Yeah, and I fell in love with this, and so and actually it was this spice bun. From time to time, you see it in Grenada. I've seen it here a couple of times, and I really can't help myself whenever I see it. I have to go.
I'm not telling you not to eat bun. I'm just saying don't eat the whole dough, eat the whole bakery.
But it comes in two sizes. You have the that shapes like a loaf, a small loaf,
like a little bun,
right? And then there's the one that shaped a little bigger, like a small pan loaf.
But that's what you know.
Yeah, yes.
There's a bun that shaped like a hot cross bun, like a little bun, and then there's a bun that like come in a pan loaf, and you have small pan loaf, a medium sized pan loaf, and large pan loaf. Okay,
that's right. Mm.
And a lot of sugar, and a lot of flour, and the other things that they put in there. But we eat bun with cheese.
Yes.
You know what kind of cheese? The processed cheese, that fake cheese that's full of fat.
Yes.
And we're not eating one slice of bun with a slice of cheese. We're eating 10 slices of bun with 2 ounces of cheese.
You eat a whole bun.
Yeah. So we have to watch our crap. And guess what? I like bun and cheese. Okay?
I'm actually confessing here. Right? Confession is good for the soul. Yeah.
We really need to look at what our cultural practices are like.
Yes.
And we probably gonna eat a lot of yam and dumpling and stuff in the days when we used to get up and go and walk to school and go and fog the yard and go and do stuff. We're not that kind of active anymore. The only active part of us is our thumbs, because we're on the computer or on some handheld device, right? We're gonna have fun and games. We're gonna go kite flying, right? But we're gonna have snacks, and we're gonna carry bad snacks for children. I think most of the snacks that are sold in the supermarket are bad, have the ultra processed products. So let's be very careful as to what we do. You can do stuff at home. Yes, you can make one bun, or you can make your bun, regular coconut bun, and slice it up and carry it and make some juice from home. There's grapefruit and oranges that you can carry that you don't have to put so much sugar into, and your family can enjoy wholesome foods for this season. And since we segued into kite flying, the most wonderful thing, it's part of what our culture is. And but we have to be very careful. Kite flying must be done in places as safe to ourselves, we who fly the kite, whether it's us or children, and safe to people who fly in aircraft. So we have no-fly zones. And I know Grenlec has been doing a lot of advertisements in relation to like tonight that it rained. You don't want it to have challenges with wet lines and all the rest, and children become electrocuted. So parents, be very careful as to where your children are allowed to fly their kites. There's some pastures. I live in Lamode, and we have a big old pasture. There are no electric lines up there. Go up there, right? Please obey what the airport's authority says as a flight path, because we don't want to endanger people who are in an aircraft. You don't want to endanger their life by, a kite coming and get into the engine, and you have a kite feed and all the rest of it. And some of us like some big old bamboo kite, right? Also, apart from the safety for us and for other people, remember the noise pollution. And I'm going to tell you, noise not only from kites. It's really unfair for people to be quarreling about kites that are left, dancing all night. The kite with the crazy mad bulls that cuss all night. The more wind, the more they cuss, right? Because so many people are left being psychologically upset in the morning. So we have to be very conscionable and be good citizens, right? Go fly a kite in a day, and when evening time come, take it down. Because those of us who tie the kite is never tied near to our house, or it doesn't fly over our house. But there's this thing on like, it sounds like torturing people who have to listen to these kites in the night. So let's be fair, right? It's going to be a good weekend. There's a lot of wind, right? There has been a lot of wind for over the last 2 weeks. Fly a kite by all means. Teach your children to make kite, which is everybody buying kite. I never used to buy kite. I fly kokoriki, but bottom line is that let me tell you, I fly kokoriki that stay up, okay? I became an expert. You have a lot of cocoa trees next to my house, and I knew the big cocoa leaves that will work, that will stay up, right? And there's always a sheet that you could tear and take out a piece of tail. But it's good exercise for our children, run up and down with their kites. It's good interaction, social interaction. It's good for us psychologically and emotionally, a time where we can laugh and have fun. My community last year, 2 years ago, they had, last year or 2 years ago, whatever, they had kite flying competition, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember the oldest kite had a kite that was about 6 inches long, and the most decorated kite. And she was like in her 80s. It was so much fun. It was a good time for community. So if you can do that in your communities, go there. It's a nice time for interaction and a time to, let ourselves down from all the stress. We've been stressed even more and more with all the changes in the U.S., the fear of economic crises, global economic crisis and all the rest because of global trade challenges, which is our business at the end of the day and from which we are going to suffer most because the people who are wealthy can afford to buy anything they want. The bottom line is that we need to really take this weekend as a time to have fun. Okay, we have 4 days. If you go, I would probably go to church on Friday, and there's always Saturday night for the Catholics, and other people go to church, and Sunday morning. It's a good time for families to come together, to sit, to have a meal together, to talk about things, to just have wholesomeness in our families and in our communities one more time.
Yes, indeed. And while we on the social aspect of things, Doc, we get around quite a lot. And one of the things we hear a lot of are accidents. And I really want us to touch on this because we've heard about these things time and time again. And two things. So the accidents, we're going to touch on that one first. And I haven't heard about it in recent times, but there was a period in Grenada where during Easter, we've heard about a couple drownings. And when people go to the beach and, so we could probably spend a little time on that. The accidents first, because I think this is something, even outside of Easter, it is a major concern in Grenada.
Yes, it is.
And it's a health issue as well.
And it is a health issue. It is a public health issue. It's a global public health issue. And the more we have vehicles and the more we have untrained drivers and arrogant drivers, drivers who get a license last week until they can fly plane on the ground, right? We have to all be aware that there's a thing called a road code. You ever read the road code? Everybody should know the road code because a road code is a series of laws that keep the roads safe. In other words, a series of rules that tell us how to go, when to go, and keeps the traffic moving. Why is it important for us to have traffic? Yes, it is. For our social life, you want to go to school, you want to go to work, you want to go to the beach, you want to go to the movies, you want to, go take the boat to go on a cruise. You have a vehicle, right? The traffic is there. There are days when we have more traffic. We've seen St. George's in the last few weeks when we had all these big cruise ships and how difficult it became. But if we all follow the rules, the traffic will move. So can I learn the rules, please, first of all. There have been a lot of accidents. And how can we look at that? One, is my vehicle in a good state? Do I have a vehicle that has proper brakes, proper steering, etc.? The fundamental things, good tires that are required to say that my vehicle is healthy. My vehicle is roadworthy. And sometimes between getting tested, getting passed, and the next getting passed, a lot of things happen which we choose not to change. Tires with baby head, tires that smooth, brakes that don't work properly. yet we drive fast, yet we drive crazy. So there's a car, there's a vehicle that you're driving, and then there's you. Can you really drive? How proficient are you as a driver? Are you going to get upset because the person in front of you is driving too slow and overtake him and put other people at risk? Are you going to drive while you're drunk or while you're high on something like marijuana or another substance that might have you very elated and feeling that you're very empowered? There are other substances that make you feel high and make you feel how you call that? Nobody can beat you. You're the best. You're the strongest. You know everything. Okay? Are you mentally well enough to be conducting a motor vehicle? Because if you have mental illness, you should not be in a car or a bus. Right? Do we have healthy roadways? Because they need to be well. And because I have a nice piece of road on the stretch, on the Grand and stretch, or when you come out of Tempe, before you get into the bridge in River, the first bridge by Steel and River Road, everybody think they must speed because they're like a road. But the road is curved. The road is tortuous, it's not smooth, it's not even level. Okay? And everybody speeds there. And we have a lot of large vehicles that ply that road. Every day I drive there. I drive there twice a day, and every single day I meet a large vehicle, at least one large vehicle, coming my way, okay? Coming my way for the most part. And I have to see, you have to give the large vehicles a little extra space because they're just big. They're not taking up the road because they feel like. They're just big, okay? Are you going to drive conscionably on roads that are not good? Some of the roads are bad. We have a lot of potholes. We have a lot of humps. I see in River Road, somebody has kindly decided to put some sign because I wouldn't even tell you what it cost my front end, right? Are we going to drive? Are we going to follow the fact that there are signs? Are we going to follow the signs that say slow down, the road curves, it's slippery when wet? You understand? Yield, stop, all the signs on the road. Are we going to follow them? And like I said, if the roadways are not healthy, you're going to have to drive with caution. Are you going to give children a chance to cross the street? Because sometimes there's some places where there isn't any pedestrian crossing. And to the people who cross in front of the bus park, there's only one place is supposed to be crossing. In front of the pedestrian, is on the pedestrian crossing. There is a pedestrian crossing. And I wish the people who control the traffic would also control the human traffic, because it puts them at risk. It puts people at risk for getting. You have a right. I get there and I stop. I have to wait for 5 minutes for the people to cross. I wait, because that's where your right lies. But I also have a right as a pedestrian, as a driver, to be able to ply the road without being stopped by people who can't walk fast and who decide they must cross as they come out of the bus on the end where the buses enter the car park, the bus park and stuff. Pedestrians have to be responsible as well. Okay, you have rights. Yes, you have rights, but you also have responsibilities that go with the rights. Your responsibility is to use the road with common sense. Don't send your children on the street alone because they don't know how to cross the street because you don't teach them. I've seen people cross the street. I had to ask one lady if she teaching her son how to kill himself on the road. Just walk across in front of a car, and the pedestrian crossing is 20 feet away.
Yes, you see that.
With a baby on her and a 9-year-old walking, carrying stuff, and he just walks because his mom is walking. So we have to be able to, as pedestrians, use the road responsibly so that we can stay alive, okay? So that we can't be harmed. Because as you say, it's a public health thing. People get injured. Injury causes death and maiming and change of your quality of life.
Doc, just take a pin there. And I want you to spend a few minutes on that, because I was going to ask you about the impact, some of the impacts from these accidents. And when, for example, you drive in a car, your car crashes, you get injured, you get broken this, broken that. I want us to spend our time on that, because people probably don't understand or don't make the connection with how accidents are public health issues.
Godfrey, you're really seizing up. I'm not seeing you. You're seizing up a whole lot.
Yeah, actually, I think it's on your end, because from time to time you freeze as well. I mean, it's tech issues, and folks, we do apologize for that, but we're trying our best. Sometimes these things, they do happen. So
yeah, I think my Wi-Fi is being unkind.
Yeah. From time to time, we see the unstable thing come up.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because we just think that we hear that Godfrey driving his car home and the car mash up and his foot break. Oh, so Godfrey can come to work. But Godfrey has a mortgage, right, Godfrey?
That's the point. Mm-hmm.
You have a mortgage, and your kids are probably in college or high school, and you need to support them. You may have a wife who's not well and that you are primary caregiver for, so you have to be home to take care of her. Or you probably take other kids to school in the morning, and if you don't go, they probably can't get to school because you live up in that like a stush place where you live, okay? And the rich people up there, all of them can't come down at the same time. They take their children to school. They can't come down at the same time. But seriously, you drive the kids away to school twice a week.
I want to add one thing, Doc. You mentioned mortgage. You mentioned a couple of things. And there's the other one. You're probably still paying the bank or the credit union for the car that you just crashed.
For the car? I know, and the insurance is going to go up on you because you just crashed your car.
But maybe in some instances, because of the circumstances, the insurance may not cover. What if you have third-party insurance?
Or none.
Well, there we go. So there's a lot of things that we need to pay attention to.
But I think what we need to pay attention to mostly is the quality of life that changes, the human component.
Exactly.
Right? I may lose my eye. I may lose my knee. I may lose my leg. I may, have abdominal challenges. I may have head injury that makes me not ever viable to work again. Right?
You might not be able to walk. You may not be able to walk the way you used to walk. You may not look the way you used to look. All of these things can happen as a result of that.
Yes. So we have to be responsible commuters. We have to be responsible drivers because it does affect us. The other thing is that, and I've mentioned this before right here, when somebody dies on the road, you have to do all this forensic investigation. It is expensive. The thousands of dollars that the government services take to do forensic investigations. We could have taken it and buy vaccines, or we could have taken it and buy medications for people in the hospital, right? And that is not something that's written into our catastrophic fund. So it's to find ways to do it. That's not. So we're responsible for ensuring each one of us who uses the road, whether you're a driver, whether you're a bus conductor, whether you're a pedestrian, it doesn't really matter. We all have some level of responsibility to ensure that road use is safe.
Yes.
I see people driving on the ambulance. That's illegal. Ambulance is coming, where they wouldn't give him a chance to pass. And when he passes, they dash off behind him so they can break the line of traffic. And that is a crime. Okay? That is actually a felony. All right? So we have to learn what a road code is. And pedestrians, you have to learn how to stay safe. Okay? Especially that you don't know who has drunk or had something that slows them down, like cannabis, or who had something that make them feel that they have all the powers, like cocaine and heroin and stuff. So we have to be very careful. Or people who are just ill. All right. So we have to be very responsible and very careful on the road.
Yes, indeed. The
other thing is that we have a lot of older cars on the road, right? People buy cars because they're relatively cheap. The reason why they're cheap is because of the whole emission, the toxins that they let go into the atmosphere, right? So if you have a car that's not so young, you probably don't want to keep it on the road as much. You also want to make sure that your car is always serviced. So it is whatever it emits will be as clean as possible, because we have a responsibility for our for the environment in which we live. So hear me now. I believe that everybody who buys a car should plant a tree. I believe that every time somebody buys a car, we should plant a new tree.
I love that. Plant 2 trees for that matter.
Yeah, plant at least 1 tree. You can plant 3 trees if you want, but I'm saying that plant a tree, a big tree, something that can help us to filter all the carbon and stuff
to absorb some carbon from the atmosphere. Indeed.
Yes, that's my thought.
I like that idea. That's a fantastic idea. I think the people in the Ministry of Climate Resilience should adopt that and promote that.
I think the insurance company should. I think it's a good incentive.
Yes, yeah, indeed. So folks, it's important that we pay attention. And you see, all of these things, for example, with the accidents, when all of these things happen, it impacts you in all the different ways, and they're all connected. Because Doc mentioned earlier that you may, for example, in an accident, you may have a mortgage, you may have a number of different things to do. You may not be able to work. Now, how does that affect your economic status? What if you can't work and you have a prior medical condition? How are you going to get your medication? And these things are all connected. And sometimes we only see it on the surface. But, sometimes we need to pay attention, go into a little detail and look at the far-reaching effects of sometimes irresponsible behavior and how it can impact us and others. So it's important, and health issues is not just, being diabetic or hypertensive, but there are a lot of other things that can impact all of that in a very, very significant way, so we have to pay very, very close attention to these things. So Doc, we've spoken about behaviors and we've spoken about some social stuff, what we eat, the way we drink, and all of that. Now, there's the other side to that, and there are those of us who's going to use the Easter holidays to get involved in wonderful social activities. The traditional kite flying, maybe spending time with family coming over and all of that. And all of these things, it can help. When you have a healthy social life, it helps you as an individual. Let's talk a little bit about that.
During COVID, I think we became very aware of how important it was for us to socialize healthily. Mm-hmm. Not just social, but socialize healthily, because in being in the presence of the stresses that inside a family and not being able to get rid of them was very difficult for us, right? And we became very aware of how our mental health on a daily basis, right, was crucial. I was just thinking about us driving on the road and people having road rage. You're going to go out there. There's no need to fight with people on the road. There's no need to fight. There's no need to pick battles. And that is why it's very important to maintain a stable mental space, okay? If you go out and you drink too much, you're going to become belligerent and you're going to have difficulties discerning what your behavior should be like. Remember that hanging out is something that is also meant to renew us. You go out and you look for healthy things to do, right? If you figure out that whoever you're hanging with are doing illegal, for one, in a big sense, or things that are questionable, you need to extricate yourself. You need to move. You need to make sure that you're going in a place that is safe to go, right? You need. So whatever we plan, the stuff that we plan should be mostly family oriented. So I can take my grandmother, I can take my grandchild to whatever event there is. It's very important. But we need to socialize. And above all, we need to look for the people who don't have the capacity to go out and get something on their own. We cook a lot of food, cook a lot of mackerel and whatever we cook on thing, and we make bun too. My mother used to make bun, but we cook food. We still kind of need to do like what we do at Christmas and look out for Miss Chrissy next door or Mr. Tom the next door or somebody down the road or the people. Okay, give somebody a ride to church. Right, some of us pass and we turn up, we went and blare the AC and the music, blare the Easter music on the thing, and we see our neighbors who don't have a car, we wouldn't get on a ride, and the rain set up, right? So we kind of need to ensure, one, that we have interaction. Two, that interaction is socially healthy, right? And that we cannot include everybody because we can't leave out anybody because everybody has the same need for being taken care of socially. Are you there, Godfrey?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Right? So that is what I want to say mostly. Be careful how you spend your money. There's no need to, we're in the middle of the month anyway. I don't know who have money to spend to go party unless you save it from last month. We're in the middle of the month. Be careful because you still have responsibility. In 2 weeks' time, our children are going to need to go back to school. You're going to need to have bus fare again, and some kids have to pay school fees depending on where they go to school and all the rest of it. You need to have snacks and stuff ready for your children when they go back to school. We're not to spend everything. And then right after that, when we go back, when we finish with Easter, is Carnival season, because Carnival is going to be launched suddenly. Remember to be very aware of how am I going to manage my financial life. We need to be aware that what is happening in the US currently and globally is going to affect us. So we need to start to plant like a food around the house. You understand? Mm-hmm. We need to do those things because we can't afford to suffer socially, emotionally, financially, and all whatever leaves with as time goes by. It's going to be very hard when we're not going to get remittances from the state, when our families are going to get returned to Grenada, even if they legal in the States. And remember that people in the States are very on edge because nobody knows what is the next move, what's going to happen with them in their status. So we have to make sure that we are very aware so that we don't fall apart as a country and as individuals when the global economic situation changes. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that is something that's going to be held on, but the damage has been done with what happened in the last 2 weeks. The stock market and all the rest, right? A lot already there, people have become poor as a result of it. It's going to take decades for people to recuperate the earnings they had and all the rest of it. So people are going to spend less. Our tourism sector may drop down. Okay, there are things that are going to change. Yes, it's end of tourist season, but guess what? We want when October, November, people start to come back inside here. Okay, we want them December, certainly. Who knows? Are people going to be able to travel, right? So the monies that we have now, we need to spend them cautiously because they're going to have to last longer and things are going to be more expensive already. So we're going to have to make, families are going to have to sit down and make decisions as to how they're going to use the resources that they have. I have a land. I'm going to put some callaloo, some okra, some tomato, and some sweet potato, right? And make sure I plant 2 fig trees behind the house. Those are the things we're going to have to worry about. How we're going to survive in the future is not business as usual, okay? So even if this is Easter weekend and want to have fun, but with a lot of conscience and a deep sense of responsibility.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Definitely so. Because it is important. And also, I just want to add a little thing here. It's going to be, as we say, a long weekend. Those of us who require our medication, it's important that we have it, More than likely, some business places will be closed on the holidays, so it's important to ensure that you have your medication, have the things that you need, so that you do not run into a problem and then you do not have the means to get what you require to take care of yourself. So there are a lot of things that we need to do.
So the people who have chronic diseases, they're not going to go away this weekend, okay? So you're not going to be allowed to drink as much as you want and eat whatever you feel like. Your life goes on as usual. Yeah, and you might eat a little. You might change what you eat, but you still have to get the volume in its place. You still have to avoid the salt. You still have to avoid the extra sugar. You have to avoid the alcohol completely if you have chronic diseases. Remember, guys, our older people is hot. It's hot out there. Remember that they need to have fluids and they need to have appropriate nutrition and stuff. So don't forget the people at the end, the babies, the little children, that is, and our older people, that they have special needs, and they require that people ensure that their well-being is secure.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk a little about the water situation, because already I've heard people talking that they have drought.
Drought.
That they don't have water.
Okay.
Have to start to store water. You must make sure your containers are clean. I advise you to boil the water and then put it, the water you're going to drink. You need to boil your water. What you're going to use to make ice, what you're going to put in the fridge for you to drink, what you're going to use to have to mix your baby bottles if you're giving your child formula. You have to boil that water. 15 minutes of boiling, because I've recognized that even if I have water, that my water is not as crystal clear. So I have not washed my white clothes because I know they're going to get dingy.
Yes.
So be very careful, be very discerning. Make sure you boil the water. It rains in some places, collect some rainwater and boil it. Not as it starts fall, because they have all the Sahara dust and stuff in the atmosphere, but collect some rainwater and boil it 15 minutes at least, because we don't want to have parasites, right? There has been gastroenteritis. There has been lots of gastro, okay? And then we see in this hot time, and when rain starts fall willy-nilly, we see that people get a lot of viruses that cause either gastroenteritis or cause respiratory tract infections. So those are the things we have to be very aware. Easter or not, if you have a cold, stay home. You can't go in a ball pitch and everybody playing cricket and up in everybody's face and drinking with them and all that. No. If you have something that can pass on, stay home. When you take your kids out, make sure that they wash their hands. Everybody, still, alcohol is still good to walk a little bit in your bag, okay? I don't mean rum, I mean 70% alcohol. I mean alcohol for cleaning.
Your hand sanitizer.
I mean methyl alcohol, right? Please make sure if there's no water to wash your hands, make sure that you have your alcohol in your bag that can spray onto your hand and rub, and encourage your children to do the same. The rules, the basic rules given to them by the Ministry of Health, the Environmental Health Department. You ought to have a food handler's permit. So people, I tell you, when you go there, people selling food, ask them to show you. This is supposed to have been displayed anyway. Ask them to show you an actual food handler's permit. The person who cannot show his food handler's permit, do not buy food from him. Hands down. Okay? Do not buy food from him, hands down. You know, there was an incident last week in Jamaica. You know the incident of the container of chicken that came in on the shore?
Yes, I saw that.
And whole container load, and people go and they loot it. They had no real owner anyway. So once they open the container on the shores, people go and they'll see them run with case of chicken and whatever it is. But sun and all the heat and sun, because it's a reefer, of course, right? But it fall off the truck. You know, it fall off. Sometimes people don't realize that the containers have fallen off the ships until long time after. Nobody knows exactly when the container fell off and it washed ashore. Yeah. I'm just saying that's what they said, okay? But people have spoken about how the same chicken has been sold by, people who have food shop on the roadside, people who cook and sell food.
Right.
But further to that today, I was reading an article where people have been harvesting stuff from the dump. So like expired foods that have to go to the dump, according to what the environment health officers say, has to be dumped, right? The people go there, harvest it, because it's not spoiled, it's just out of date, okay? But people have been going there, finding those stuff and cooking and selling, right, on the roadsides, okay? you should be able to ask people where do you buy your stuff from, right? Because you don't see them. That's what's happened. But I'm saying to be very aware of where you eat and what you eat, because you just never know where people source their food from. Okay, so it's a matter of protecting yourself. And of course, to the people who want to break the rule, I'm telling you, it's going to catch up with you, because the environmental health officers are out there, right? You have to keep your place clean. You have to keep your place sanitary in order to be able to provide food. Because if you have food that has become tainted by whatever means, virus, bacteria, and you're selling food, it's going to be a wide population. Because if I were to come from St. David's and somebody come from Victoria and somebody comes from River Road and we all went on to event and we all eat food at this one place in St. George's, guess what's going to happen? It's going to be very difficult to figure out where this infection came from. So people who sell food, you have a responsibility to ensure that the quality of food and the source of the food that you sell are legitimate and within the rules that are prescribed by the Ministry of Health and by your conscience.
Yes, indeed. Well, Doc, I think we've covered quite a bit. What I would like us to do now, though, and time is going by quickly, just to briefly, just to recap, some of what we spoke about, and just to reiterate the message of responsibility during the period.
So this is Easter. I like Easter because it's a quiet holiday, right? But we all have different traditions and different things we want to do. And of course, it's not like 20 years ago. There are a lot more events. People have access. They have vehicles and stuff. And with every single aspect of that comes responsibility. Yes, the ministry and the government responsible for having safe roads. If the roads are unsafe, you have to drive like the road not safe. Take your time. Is my car healthy to be on the road? Am I sober enough? Am I sober? You can't drink and drive home. One drink is going to make you not as efficient as no drink. Okay, so if you're the person who drives, you can't be drinking. And I would say don't drink at all. Okay? Enjoy this, but enjoy this with the look, this is a nice light holiday. It's 4 days for people who don't work on Saturday. And a good time to rest, from, we say we're tired and this and that and the other. It's a good time to rest. It's a good time for families. It's a good time to go there and enjoy the traditions like kite flying, going to the beach. Oh, by the way, you talked about swimming. We need to talk about that. And maybe I should talk about it now. The safety in the ocean. Because you have heavy winds, you probably have big tides, right? If you know you swim like a big stone, sit on the sand. If you don't know the place where you swim, sit on the sand. Look out for your children, because children will disappear in the wink of an eye. They see something, they see a pretty ball, and they'll take off, not taking into consideration the fact that there are big waves that can take them away. So make sure your children are always cared for. Go to a beach where there are lifeguards. Okay? Most of our beaches have lifeguards, but go to a beach where there are lifeguards. If you can't swim, you just can't swim, just make sure you go out. Your water shouldn't cross your ankle if you can't swim. Sit down on the sand and let the water wash you. I remember my grandma used to say she can't swim and she's afraid to see anyway, because she says seawater don't have no branch.
Nothing to hold, yeah.
Nothing to hold on to, right? I know that there are lessons, ongoing lessons. We live on an island. All of us should be able to swim. Every one of us should have at least made an effort to learn to swim. It's free of cost. I think, was it this week that they were having swimming by on Grand Anse Beach, new hotel, Silver Sands, right? It's free of cost. It's every holiday they have swimming lessons. Carriacou people, I know there have been ongoing swimming lessons, because I was very surprised that so many people in Carriacou couldn't swim. And that was long before the hurricane. So I hope that has improved. Enjoy the holiday, but be responsible. Be responsible by being aware, by being conscious, being aware of your environment, being aware that you stand a chance of being sexually assaulted if you're inebriated as a female and even as a male. Being aware that we've had an upsurge PV, but HIV certainly has been on the upswing. If you need information, there's information you can get from your doctor, you can get from the clinic. You have Grenchap, who also, that is their mission, to decrease the spread of HIV in Grenada. Be aware of what is there. Because you don't hear about it, it's because it's been dealt with very confidentially, and because people have become very careless, because now there's medication that can treat it and control the disease, but there's no need to have it because we can prevent it.
That's right.
It's also a time when we tend to be, once there's festivity, we tend to be irresponsible about how we eat, right? You still will have challenges with the diabetes if you consume too much alcohol, or you consume too much sweet drinks, or you eat too much food. You're still going to have problems with your hypertension if you don't take your medication as well for diabetes. You don't take your medication, you eat all the salt food, you eat too much volume, and if you consume alcohol. So please be aware, okay? The same thing you do for money. Behaviors, because they're going to be bad for us. Remember that our hospitals are already filled with people who are sick. If we don't treat ourselves well, we're going to end up there, and we're going to complain that doctor don't watch us, but doctor just overwhelmed with people who are sick with diseases that they don't have control, like cancer, okay, and problems with your thyroids and all the rest of it. So let's be realistic. Using condoms to prevent sexually transmitted disease is very important, right? We probably shouldn't have to, but the bottom line is that this is how our life. We've been a little too liberal, but if you're going to be liberal, you're going to have to take equal and even more responsibility for your behaviors.
Yep.
Condoms are supposed to be the safest means after abstinence. Abstinence meaning not having sex, right? Condoms are supposed to be the safest means after abstinence to prevent sexually transmitted diseases. Learn how to put on a condom. You don't put on a condom. There's a technique to putting on a condom, which means that you hold the tip of the condom, the little thing that looks like a balloon in the end, squeeze out all the air, roll it over an erect penis, and then you let it go. So when you put on the condom, the thing is flat. If there's air in the end, you stand a chance of breaking or it coming off because of the air pressure. Once you put on a condom properly, it should not fail you. Okay? And you don't put it on once, you're going to have sex 10 times, you have 10 different condoms. I'm sorry. That's just how it is.
Yep. Okay? Yes.
You're required to stay and have relationships with the people that we know. If I have a partner, that's my partner. So monogamy and being responsible in that way is still very important. I'm not trying to give you a lesson in morality here. I'm just saying, I'm giving you a lesson.
Okay, we've been having some little tech issues. We seem to have actually lost Doc there for a moment. But folks, generally, we've sort of shared with you most of what we wanted to, what we intended to share with you this evening. And we trust that, with the holidays that are coming, that we pay very close attention. We exercise good judgment at all times and ensure that we are aware of our surroundings. Okay. Doc, you back?
We are aware. For a second. Yes, I am.
Yeah. Right. So Doc is back, and we're just about to wrap, actually. So, Doc, I think you need to just go landscape for a bit. With your.
I am landscape.
Actually, we were not seeing you landscape. I am
landscape. Oh,
there we are. Yes, there we are. Yeah.
All right.
So in closing, I was just saying, and it's just admonishing our folks to, be responsible, exercise good judgment, and, think about ourselves, in whatever we plan to do or whatever we're going to do, so that at the end of it, we are safe and we are healthy.
Yeah, enjoy Easter. It's a nice time. It's a nice, quiet holiday. And I really want everybody to use it as a time for respite and reflection, especially from a spiritual standpoint. It's a good time for us who are Christians, right? But it's a quiet time. Look, have your fun, but be responsible. Okay? Be very responsible. Don't try to hit my car on the road, because I'm not very nice to people who try to hit my car. All right? I try. No, I drive very responsibly, and I get very upset.
Well, we seem to have lost her again. But folks, basically that's
Okay. You lost Godfrey.
Yeah, yes. Well,
And also have fun. I want you to be happy. When Tuesday morning come and go back to work, say, oh, this was such a good, healthy weekend. But make sure you're aware of much during COVID and the separation from each other, to not use moments like these for healthy times. Remember to boil your water. It is important. Now and next week and week after and after, because, we having less and less rain. Okay? Remember to take care of everyone. Remember that we all still each other's keeper. And that when Easter is finished, we all going to be. But we see each other next week, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah, we see each other after Easter.
Yeah. Tuesday, next Tuesday. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So,
But
Doc,
I wish everybody a happy and holy Easter season.
Yes, indeed. Well, Doc, thank you very much. That's all the time we have tonight, folks. Again, we wish you all the best, and please be mindful, again, of what you do and your surroundings. Do the right thing, so that in the end, we'll all be safe. Don't forget to join me tomorrow evening, 8:30, for our Kaiso Talk. We have a very special guest with us, so be sure to join us for that tomorrow. And also at 6 tomorrow, we have a special edition of You Allah and You, as we look at the 20th anniversary of the Caribbean Court of Justice. That's at 6 tomorrow. So until then, do have a good night and all the best. We see you tomorrow, please, God.
Happy Easter.
Yes.